Inside a high-security prison, there is a woman who strikes fear into everyone, Amanda Montoya. Nicknamed the Angel of Death, she is not just an ordinary criminal, but also a master manipulator capable of controlling both inmates and guards with her intelligence. Amanda Montoya was no ordinary woman. Since her teenage years, she had been accustomed to living in the criminal world, mastering the art of manipulation and violence in terrifying ways. Her first crime occurred when she was only 17 years old, when she was allegedly involved in the murder of a drug dealer who had tried to deceive her. However, the police were never able to prove it. In the years that followed, she became increasingly known as a ruthless figure, building a powerful criminal network in the underworld. She was not just a killer, but also a strategic thinker, capable of controlling anyone who entered her web. Her arrest became one of the police force's largest operations. She had managed to evade law enforcement for years, often toying with the authorities by leaving false clues. However, one small mistake finally led to her downfall. When one of her subordinates was caught and provided information about her hideout, the police acted swiftly. Armed to the teeth, they surrounded a safe house on the outskirts of the city. Amanda did not surrender easily. She fought back but was ultimately captured after a fierce shootout that left several of her men dead. From the moment she entered Litchfield Penitentiary, Amanda became the center of attention. Unlike other inmates who had to adapt to the harshness of prison life, she arrived with an air of leadership that commanded respect. It didn't take long for her to seize power. The prisoners who once controlled certain cell blocks began to submit to her authority. She knew how to manipulate fear, using both subtle threats and brutal violence to secure her position. The myth surrounding her grew as a series of mysterious incidents occurred inside the prison. A prisoner who had once insulted Amanda was found with severe facial injuries, as if someone had carved a warning into his skin. Another inmate who tried to challenge her suddenly vanished from the cafeteria, only to be discovered a day later in solitary confinement, wounded and terrified. No one dared to ask how these things happened. They only knew one thing: defying Amanda Montoya was a grave mistake. However, there was something even more terrifying than the violence she inflicted: her ability to speak and influence others. Amanda didn't rely solely on threats to get what she wanted. She also possessed an extraordinary charm. Even the prison guards began to fall under her influence. Some seemed too lenient when dealing with her, while others secretly started assisting her in various ways. With such power, Amanda was no mere prisoner. She was a ruler in her new confined world. Amanda Montoya's presence in Litchfield Penitentiary completely changed the dynamics within the prison. Previously, power among the inmates was divided among several groups that controlled various aspects of life behind bars, from smuggling operations to influence over corrupt guards. However, Amanda's arrival disrupted everything. With her intelligence, she did not directly challenge the existing rulers, but instead gradually built loyalty among inmates who felt marginalized. She offered protection, benefits, and the promise of power to those willing to work for her. In a short time, she had assembled her own army. Amanda did not rely solely on physical strength or threats of violence to control the prison. She understood how to manipulate human psychology. She exploited fear, needs, and weaknesses to gain control over people. A young guard with significant debt suddenly turned a blind eye to some illegal activities within the prison, while an inmate terrified of rival gangs mysteriously found protection after swearing loyalty to Amanda. Slowly but surely, she wove her web, making herself untouchable despite being confined in a cell that was supposed to limit her freedom. The prison's black market trade was now under her control. Cigarettes, drugs, makeshift weapons, and even information about other inmates all passed through Amanda's hands. No transaction could take place without her knowledge. If anyone attempted to do business without her approval, they faced terrifying consequences. One inmate who tried selling contraband without her permission was found sprawled in the bathroom, covered in wounds. a clear message that betrayal was not an option. Even the guards began to notice that Amanda wielded more power than they had initially thought, but none were brave enough to challenge her. However, power always comes with enemies. Some of the old groups that once ruled the prison began feeling threatened by Amanda's dominance. They tried to devise plans to overthrow her, but every move they made seemed to have already been anticipated. Amanda's trusted allies were always one step ahead, leaking information before any plan could be executed. Every threat to her rule was crushed before it could even take shape. This led many to believe that Amanda was not just dangerous, she had eyes and ears everywhere. Even though she had conquered the prison, Amanda knew her power would not last if she simply remained in her comfort zone. She began planning something bigger, something that could push her beyond her current limits. She wasn't satisfied with just being the queen behind bars, she wanted more. The question was no longer whether she could survive, but how far she could expand her reach. And for those who dared to stand in her way, there was only one choice: submit or disappear. Behind the solid walls of Litchfield Penitentiary, the fear of Amanda Montoya grew more real. Nearly all the inmates bowed to her, and even the guards preferred not to provoke her. However, amidst her absolute dominance, a small group of prisoners began to grow weary. They realized that if no one stopped Amanda now, she would continue expanding her power until no one could stand against her. This small resistance started moving in secret, devising a plan to overthrow the Queen of Darkness from her throne. The rebellion began subtly by sabotaging the flow of information Amanda usually received. They started spreading false rumors, causing her to lose trust in some of her closest allies. Some of the illegal operations under her control also began facing disruptions, with smuggled goods mysteriously disappearing before reaching their destinations. Slowly, cracks in her rule began to show. However, Amanda was not a woman easily deceived. She knew someone was working against her, and without hesitation, she ordered her subordinates to uncover the mastermind behind it all. When she finally discovered who was behind the rebellion, Amanda did not remain idle. She resorted to her old tricks, turning her enemies against each other. She approached one of the rebels and offered a deal too tempting to refuse. With a mix of threats and promises of protection, the person eventually betrayed the entire plan. In a single night, nearly all members of the resistance were found and punished in terrifying ways. Some were sent to solitary confinement with unexplained injuries, while others simply vanished. However, even though the rebellion had been crushed, Amanda knew this was only the beginning of a greater resistance. If one group had dared to challenge her, others would surely follow. She understood that the only way to survive was to remain the strongest and show no mercy. With a cold smile, she gazed at the bars of her cell, knowing that even though she was imprisoned, she still controlled everything. The question was no longer whether she would fall, but how long she could hold on to her throne before someone brave enough came to take it from her.